OJ.
Oh.
Let's not get to OJ.
Oh, I love orange juice. Oh boy, I can't wait to learn more about orange juice.
I know.
There we go. Okay. O.J. Simpson was one of the best running backs of all time. He played in the NFL for 11 seasons, and he had a very successful acting career, and he acted in things like Towering Inferno, Naked Gun, Juiced, and he was considered for a large role in The Terminator. O.J. Simpson was born in San Francisco in 1947. His mom was a psychiatric orderly, and his father was a janitor and cook, who was also well known in the Bay Area for his performance as a drag queen. O.J. Simpson passed away from prostate cancer in early April of last year. Nicole Brown was born on May 19th, 1959 in West Germany. She was married to O.J. Simpson from 1985 to 1992. They had 2 children together. Nicole was not a prominent figure before her marriage to O.J. She was a waitress at a nightclub when the two met. She was 18, and O.J., who was still married to his first wife at the time, was 30. Nicole loved being a mother, and she said she saw it as her crowning achievement. Her kids were only 8 and 5 years old when she passed away. Ron Goldman was close friends with Nicole Brown, and he was a server at a restaurant. He also wanted to be an actor. He was a regular person. He wasn't famous, but he did model on occasion and was a contestant on a game show called Studs. He also volunteered to help children suffering from cerebral palsy in his free time. Ron Goldman was only 25 at the age of his death. On June 12, 1994, O.J. Simpson was supposedly at his home in Los Angeles waiting for his limo driver to pick him up for a flight into Chicago for the next morning. Nicole Brown had returned home after a night out at dinner and after attending one of her children's recitals. She had left a pair of sunglasses at a restaurant, and Ron Goldman decided that he would go to her home and return them. Early the following morning, Nicole and Ron were both found dead outside of her home. Nicole had suffered 7 stab wounds in the neck and scalp. She had also sustained a 14-centimeter long gash across her throat that nearly decapitated her. Ron Goldman had multiple stab wounds to his neck, body, and head, including a fatal injury to his aorta. He had bruising all over his knuckles, and Nicole had scratches going down her arms. Despite his alibi, O.J. Simpson remained the only suspect for the crime. It was later confirmed by several witnesses that O.J. Simpson was on a later flight than he had originally claimed, making him unaccounted for at the time of the murders. On June 17th, just 4 days after the murders, a warrant was put out for his arrest.
Just one sec. Sage, we might turn the light off because that's a little better. Thank you.
There was a substantial amount of evidence that proved O.J. Simpson was guilty. He was supposed to turn himself in on June 17th, but instead he engaged in a low-speed car chase. I believe the top speed was 40 miles an hour. So there was blood found on the handles of his vehicle, and he had scratches on his hands. There was a leather glove found at the scene, and a matching one was found outside of his home. During the trial, O.J. Simpson had to try on the gloves. This is where the famous line, "If the gloves don't fit, you must acquit," came from. When O.J. Simpson tried on the gloves, they barely fit. However, they had been sitting in an evidence bag and they have been soaked in blood, which can shrink the leather. And it is also rumored that O.J. Simpson's lawyers had him stop taking his arthritis medication before the trial, which would have caused his hands to swell. There are several instances where Nicole had mentioned O.J. being violent to friends and family. There was also a 911 call that she had made claiming him to be physically violent towards her. It is also said that O.J. Simpson would not let Nicole have a job, and he was very controlling over her. There is a claim made by one of O.J. Simpson's friends, Mike Gilbert, where O.J. had said if she hadn't opened the door with a knife in her hand, she would still be alive. I am not sure how reliable Mike Gilbert is because a lot of people had said that he struggled with addiction and he was not super truthful. He also said that O.J. Simpson was under the influence of more than one substance when he told him this. So it is possible that O.J. did say this and it wasn't what actually happened. The trial was really big when it happened. It's sometimes called the trial of the century. It still has a lot of fame today, and that is in part due to O.J. Simpson's relationship with the Kardashian family. Robert Kardashian, the late father of Rob, Kim, Khloe, and Kourtney Kardashian, was one of the lawyers on the defense. He was also close personal friends with O.J. Simpson. It was the O.J. Simpson trial that led to the fame the Kardashians have now, but their fame today still keeps the trial alive and popular because it has been mentioned numerous times in their reality TV show, and it has caused public scandals for the Kardashian family. There was rumors of an affair between Kris Jenner and O.J. Simpson Kardashian while her and Robert were still married. These rumors were started by O.J. Simpson, so he's the one that first said something about it, but Kris Jenner denied them heavily, but also you can't really tell if that's factual or not because both of them are not very truthful people. The jury vote was unanimous and O.J. Simpson was ultimately found not guilty. But he was, however, found liable for the murders in a civil suit that would take place a couple years later. The case of Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown is still unsolved. O.J. Simpson had an amazing group of lawyers on his team. These included the lead defense attorney, Johnny Cochran, Robert Shapiro, a member of the defense team known for representing other athletes, Robert Kardashian, a close friend of O.J. Simpson and member of the defense team, F. Lee Bailey, a prominent lawyer who helped expose the credibility of a key prosecution witness, Alan served as an advisor on the case, Barry Scheck, a DNA expert who was part of the defense, Sean Hawley, another lawyer on the defense team, Robert Blazier, a defense attorney, and finally Carl E. Douglas, a lawyer who was considered one of Cochran's top associates. You might be surprised to hear that O.J. Simpson was found not guilty because there is a lot of evidence to prove that he did it, but there was even more flaws in the prosecution. The prosecuting lawyers were Marcia Clark and Christopher Darden and Gil Garcetti. They were less known than OJ's lawyers, and they had made many errors when presenting their case. DNA evidence was fairly new, and they spent too much time trying to explain it to the jury, and they did not do it in a very good way, which did a lot of harm. There was also a question of credibility for some of their witnesses, like Mark Furman, who had been known to say racial slurs, which made his testimony suspicious because a lot of jury members believe that race may have been involved. Probably their biggest flaw was evidence tampering. There were photos taken at the scene right after it happened of some clothing items. I'm not exactly sure what they were, but the photos that were taken directly after the crime scene happened were compared with photos that were taken later on, and they didn't match up. So the items were in different locations. A detective in the case had taken a pair of shoes, sealed them in he didn't seal them in evidence bag. He just took the pair of shoes from the scene and placed them in the trunk of his car. So the shoes were inadmissible in court. And there's a lot of evidence that was collected days after the crime took place. So there's a lot of evidence that could have been used and it wasn't because of all of the evidence tampering and improper collection. O.J. Simpson was found liable for the deaths of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman in a 1997 civil trial, and he was ordered to pay millions in damages. He faced further legal issues, including a 2001 incident in Florida, and most significantly, a 2007 armed robbery and kidnapping conviction in Las Vegas. He would serve 9 years for that. He was released in 2017, and he spent the rest of his life living in Las Vegas. He wrote a book called If I Did It, Confessions of the Killer, where he stated that he did not kill Ron and Nicole. But if he did, that's how he would have killed them. Originally, there were around 40,000 copies made of the book, but O.J. Simpson paid for all of them to be destroyed. The Goldman family would sue for the rights to the book, and they won and republished it. But they changed it to the cover that you see now, and it does technically have the same name. It is still called If I Did It, but they took the if and they made it in dark red font, really tiny letters, so it looks like it just says I did it, Confessions of a Killer. Nicole's children have gone on to live very private lives. They don't do anything in the public, and most of her family has chosen to do the same. Her sisters have appeared in a couple interviews, but that is pretty much it. Ron Goldman's family have done the opposite, and they have continued to advocate for him and the rights of other victims. They have not stopped pursuing O.J. Simpson, and just recently, his estate has agreed to pay Ron Goldman's father $58 million. Like other unsolved cases, there are many theories as to who was responsible for the brutal murders of Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown. The most common theory is that O.J. Simpson did it. There's also a theory that there was a drug dealer in the area who was friends with Nicole and that it was a drug-related hit. There's the idea that there was a serial killer that did it. I couldn't find very much evidence about that, but it was mentioned a couple times. And there's a theory that I have seen online a couple of times saying that OJ's son did it. So OJ had children before his marriage with Nicole, and it was said that his son was a little violent and that he may have been jealous of OJ's relationship with his children with Nicole, and he may have been upset that OJ was married to Nicole, so he killed Nicole and OJ Simpson covered it up. I don't know what evidence there is for that, but more than one person said it, so I think O.J. Simpson is guilty. There's no doubt in my mind that he did it. He had the money for an amazing team of lawyers. He really did have a good defense. And the prosecution was so disorganized. I think had I been on the jury, I also probably would have said that he was not guilty because their evidence was awful. They did not do a good job, and I think it would have been really hard to convict him with the prosecution. I think the most convincing piece of evidence for O.J. Simpson doing it is the 911 calls that Nicole made before he killed her. They're available on the internet, and they show how O.J. Simpson acted in private. He was not a normal husband. He was not a normal person, and he didn't act that way around people. I also think the way that he behaved after the trial, it kind of shows that he was not innocent. He was very weird with the public. Like he'll go on interviews and he'll talk, like he'll be like, I'm not talking about it at all, I'm not talking about it at all, and then he gets the book saying that he basically did it. So I feel incredibly sorry for the families of Ron and Nicole, especially Nicole's children. They are never going to get justice because O.J. Simpson walks free, and I think O.J. knew that everyone knew he was guilty, and so he used the trial to his advantage to get more fame out of it.
Any questions? Yeah. How long was the trial?
I don't know.
Almost a year. Went on from haven't heard. It's painful. Any questions? All right, Ben, we have OJ to blame for the Kardashians.
Yes.
Okay, well, then that's, yeah, good job. All right. I will say that Alan Dershowitz, does anybody know, he also another famous person he was an attorney for. Jeffrey Epstein. He was also a frequent traveler to Jeffrey Epstein's island. Alan Dershowitz is an interesting guy. Yeah, the glove thing. Oh, one more thing about the gloves. He was also wearing a plastic, or he was wearing gloves. So,
You guys can see that photo, but the gloves look like they fit.
Yeah.
oh, there's pictures of him wearing.
Yeah. There's something like that. He did this. Yeah.
Yes.
Good job. I guess there's only one thing we can do after that. We're getting the heck out of the country. We're gonna leave the United States.
Yeah.
We're gonna go to London. All right, we want to go to fish and chips. Come on. Yeah, come on, give it up for fish and chips. By the way, fish and chips are kind of awesome. They have all the grease you can ever want. There might be some fish, I don't know. All right, give me one sec. Now let's go.
So I did Jack the Ripper. Okay, so a little bit about the background. It was in the 1800s. The crime started in 1888. It was in Whitechapel. So Whitechapel was already considered a rough place or a criminal rookery, which is a slum or a high-rated crime like place. It was extremely impoverished, overcrowded, unsanitary, and there was undermanned police. So it was pretty rough, as such as most places in London. So it was already a very dangerous, risky place. Okay, so what was the crime to start out, and how was it carried out? So the crime was the murder of at least 5 women, considered to be the Chemical Five. There was another named Martha Tabram, but because of the nature of her murder, it was much different than Jack's victims. Her murder isn't like verified to be involved, so it's just a kind of vibe. The murder would be severing their throats and then removing their organs. Always was slicing the throat. I'm not getting into much more detail about that, but so who are the victims? So we have Mary Jane Nicholas, who was 43 years old, and she was murdered on August 31st. She was killed on Bucks Road, now named Stewart Street. Then we have Annie Chapman, who was 47 years old, and she was murdered on September 8th on Hamburger Street. Then there is Elizabeth Stride, who was 45, and she was murdered on September 30th, murdered in the entrance of Dutfield's yard on the narrow alleyway off Burner Street, now Henfire Street, if you say it. And then there was Catherine Eddowes, who was 46, also murdered on September 30th, murdered at Mitre Square. This is known as the double event because it was to take place in the same night. And then the last murder was Mary Jane Kelly. She was 25 years old, so the youngest victim, and she was murdered on November 9th. She was murdered by Miller's Court in a lodging house on Dorset Street, said to be the worst street in London by some. Her murder was the most gruesome, as hers was the only committed crime indoors, said to be her own bedroom. So it was really gruesome persons. So here's a little map of where all the murders took place. It was like about like a square mile, like all within a square, half a square mile of each other. Okay, so about the victims, they were all involved in prostitution allegedly, but that's controversial for some. They all lived impoverished racial lifestyles, like I said before, such as most did, making them very vulnerable, for murder to take place. Okay, so I just focused on 3 possible suspects because there's many. So the first one is Aaron Kosminski. He was a barber in Whitechapel who was a Polish immigrant. Then we have, this name's I'm gonna butcher this name, Montague John Judert. He was a barrister, basically a lawyer, a certain kind, and he was also a teacher who played cricket in his spare time. And then we have George Chapman. His former name is Surin or something. I have no idea. Also known as Borough, also known as the Borough prisoner, was a barber who immigrated from Poland, but was also poisoned his 3 wives and was executed for their murders in 1903. Oh, I went too far. Oops, I'm supposed to stay on that slide. I don't know why I went. Okay, so the main evidence on why Aaron was suspected was that he reportedly said he hated women. He lived near the murders, and he was deemed to be a schizophrenic after the murders took place. He was institutionalized into an insane asylum in 1891 after threatening his sister with a knife, deeming him to have very homicidal tendencies. He stayed in the asylum until his death of March 24th, 1919. DNA analysis done in 2014 and 2019 on a shawl found by the victim, Catherine Eddowes, supposedly matched Aaron Kosminski. Though many are not convinced of this proof, it was due to the limitations of DNA matching ability, and it was someone's own independent research, not a verified actual case study. Okay, Montague was suspected as a primary suspect in the case due to the fact that his father was a surgeon, which would give him the ability or knowledge of autonomy to conduct the mutilations. Another reason was he played cricket in the areas around where the victims were killed. Montague committed suicide just after the last murder in December, which is the main reason. Kind of like makes it seem like he felt guilty, but never too sure. Lastly, a police official listed him as a suspect officially in 1894 because his family also claimed to believe he was guilty. George wasn't a suspect during the time of the murders, but he was suspected because he had surgical knowledge he acquired in Poland. But also a man named Adeline was told from George's first wife, Lucy, that he would leave for hours at night around the time of the murders. Since years after the murders, George was charged with the murder of his 3 wives. He seemed like possibly guilty, even though the murders were way different. He poisoned his wives, and those were mutilations. but it's possible for that. Okay, so the verdict was a cold case, so no actual verdict. Jack the Ripper was never found or revealed. There was no further evidence pointing to one suspect after this case. The police couldn't find conclusive evidence. It didn't really go anywhere as stated, and limitations of the police and forensic science were the main reasons because it was in the 1800s. There wasn't really much they could do. Okay, so interesting details of the case. There was many hoax letters that people would write just to get media attention, but there was two individual letters, one of them not so serious. It was the Dear Boss letter. This letter was basically taunting the police and investigative force in which a person who signed the letter signed Jack the Ripper, which was where the name came from. Before that, his name was Leather Apron. Everyone would call him Leather Apron. Another more disturbing letter was the Dear Boss letter. The From Hell letter. This letter was sent to a man named George Lusk, who was the chairman of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee, who patrolled at night during the Jack the Ripper murders. It was sent with half a human kidney, and Catherine Eddowes was missing a kidney when she was found. So it's suspected that that may have been her kidney, and that is also why they believe that this is actually Jack the Ripper, which is really scary. So those are just some facts. What did this tragic event leave behind? It left behind over a century of mystery and theory. It kind of made people get into like the mystery of murder, and like it gained lots of media focus and attention after that. It created social reforms and more awareness of the conditions and extreme poverty in London, due to just everything of this case. My evaluation is I did lots of different research. Aaron seems likely, to me, the DNA isn't completely factual, but I think Aaron's there's so much more evidence for Aaron. There could be many other reasons why the other suspects did what they did. We can never really be certain though. And it most likely will never be discovered. So it's
Thank goodness.
yeah.
Any questions? Just one quick question. How long a period did the murder take place?
It took place from September to November. And
A
so
few months.
just a few months.
I mean, Jeff.
They never occurred after that. So
Yeah, any question over there?
there is theories that it could be other people, but their main theory is that since all of the murders were committed in like the same exact way, it is the same person and it was in the same exact area. Yeah.
I wanted to ask that was
You notice the one picture you use has Jack the Ripper in America now.
I did see that. I forgot to mention that on the picture. So there's that.
It's such an amazing story. And if you ever get a chance to go to London, it's a great walking tour. Yeah, it's a really good walking tour. All right, good job. Let's go next. For tomorrow. Fiona, can you go? After you go? All right, we're trying, we'll go, we got to stop, how long do we have, how much time do we have? How about we get started, we'll finish it tomorrow, sound good? We have to get,
So disclaimer, I'm not gonna focus on all of the people. There's 15 people who have committed this robbery. And so not all of them are gonna be focused on, and it's mostly gonna be focused on the crime itself. Because it was cool and smart. Don't do crime.
All right, I got it, maybe get that down? All right. Go. No, don't go. Now go.
Train robbery of 1963. This happened on August 3rd of 1963. And basically what's happening around this time, this is also in London. We're not in America. London was in a lot of political scandals. Queen Elizabeth still alive. And the Beatles had just started up. There's also a banking holiday that occurred in Scotland, which is why the train ended up carrying so much more money than it would usually. It went from about 300,000 euros to about 2.3 million euros being carried on that train during the time of the robbery. Okay, two people I'm going to focus on. Bruce Reynolds. He is the one who was like the leader of the 15-strong gang. And he basically headed up the operation and started up the entire thing. He was sentenced to, I believe, 25 years in prison at the end of all of this. And then Ronnie Biggs over there, he has a fun story. He was sentenced to, I believe it was 15 years in prison. After just 3 months, he ended up escaping in a moving van on a trip. And he ran around to Argentina and then to Australia, and then eventually just decided to come back to London for fun. So he's fun. And there's 12 other people. Okay, so starting off, this all happened at a place called Sears Crossing. The train was the London Glasgow Royal Mail train. All of the valuables and money was stored in the front two cars of the train. What happened is the driver, Jack Mills, saw a red sign at the Sears Crossing, the sign stop. And how it happened is someone stuck a glove into the correct green signal, and they used a 6-volt battery to then power on the red signal instead to stop the train. From there, the gang, Jack Mills sent out his co-driver, David Whitby, to see what was the problem and to call up the rest of the train stations. And before he could, he was jumped by the gang. And so the call didn't get out, and they had cut the call wire even before he had gotten there. Jack Mills was then attacked, as you can see here. This is the one of the few actually violent things that happened on this train ride. Jack Mills was attacked and knocked out, and they began trying to figure out a way to drive the train. They decoupled the ending cars of the train, keeping just the first two with the valuables on it, so they could drive down to a later station closer to their extraction point where they wanted to get out and lay low for a while after stealing all of the money. But their driver ended up having experience in less advanced trains. So he couldn't actually drive the Royal train, and they had to wake up Jack Mills to then continue driving the train down the track. Well, they kept some of the other staff members who were on the train at the very back of the train. From there, we went all the way up. 30 minutes away was their hideout, Oakley, Buckinghamshire, Weatherspoon Farm. Very long name, I know. At this farm, they basically, before leaving the train, they unloaded the 120 sacks of just euros upon euros, and they loaded it into a truck, and they told the staff members, don't call the police for 30 minutes. This is very important because this is part of how they got caught. They realized that their location was 30 minutes away based on the fact that they had told them not to call for the 30 minutes. From there, they were like, woo, we did it. We stole from the train. And so they started playing Monopoly with the real money for fun. From there, that is actually part of how they got caught, is they got spooked by some low-flying training aircraft, which wasn't actually searching for them. And they ended up divvying out all the money and trying to get away. In the process, they ended up leaving all of the evidence, like the fingerprints on the Monopoly board. And so they used those fingerprints to then track down all of the people. 2.3 million euros. It would be worth roughly 30 million euros today, which is about
Pounds.
pounds. And that's about 40 million US dollars. 12 were caught. 3 of them ended up escaping, including the guy who was supposed to have driven the train, as well as their inside man who had given them the information on when the London Glasgow train would have arrived. In total, all of the 12 got 307 years of prison time. It started a new era of crime in London because besides the attack on the driver, Jack Nels, the robbery was actually fairly nonviolent. There were no firearms used during the entirety of the thing, just here. And mostly it's just a lot of reputation for them. And I'm betting they had a lot of fun doing the robbery and being like, yes, we're so smart for doing this. My evaluation, it's pretty smart. It's not smart playing Monopoly with the money and then leaving it, but the rest of it was pretty crafty and it's better than something that could have been like a more violent robbery, so.
That's one of the great train robbery stories that almost worked. Any other questions? Yeah, almost. And the other three, they never were caught. And they didn't give them up?
Never.
All right, good job. I'll get to the one more question. So when Ronnie Biggs came back, when he escaped, was he arrested again when he came back?
Yeah, he was
Okay,
arrested.
yeah. Mia got arrested. All right, good job. Argentina. What's the bell ring experience? Okay, we got a minute. No. Okay. We'll finish up tomorrow and we have a test coming up. We did do the test tomorrow, just assuming what the other, we'll see how long it takes.
Okay.
Then I'll give you the assignment for gambling. We will watch a good movie I thought that'd be a great thing to watch about the 1919 White Sox and then, we'll get time after the break and start then. Goodbye, everybody. But you gotta make a fair with it. It's very even.
I think we have time to do.
Um,
It really-
Next semester, is there any